record these for people who have to miss. But welcome, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to a very special RPIrates, the RPI users group. Those of you who have been active RPIrates followers know that approximately once a month, we have our RPIrates meeting where we get together and talk about some special topic. We also do airing of grievances and sharing of feats of strength. This hour, we're actually devoting to talking about the RPI StudySafe app, which is an app that it was students working with us on various campus reopening COVID projects starting last summer actually conceived up and developed throughout the summer and fall terms. And then we've got a team that's been really polishing at it and doing some really cool engineering this term working with us. And we actually have 3 of the 4 students who have touched StudySafe this spring on with us right now. And we'll just a little bit of background, and then I'll actually turn it over to a couple of the students to kind of take us through it. The idea, one of the goals with the various applications and analysis that we're doing starting last summer were there ways that we could use information, that open information that was provided by campus to help with goals of de-densification, help both the administration and, it turns out, help students make good decisions about where to go on campus, how to manage the density of people on campus. And the CIO's office had just started a Wi-Fi survey, a Wi-Fi access point survey database, which was monitoring on approximately every 30 minutes the number of users and the number of unique devices on campus. It was anonymized data for over 1,300 devices spread across campus, wherever there was a device, and also, as it turns out, various off-campus buildings. And so that was used in 2 different ways. One was to create an app called Safe Campus, which is using a bit heavier duty visualization and analysis to really understand kind of the trends about flow on campus and help understand the campus population at almost near real time, but also be able to look historically. And some of the students on the call tonight have been working on extending the ability to understand the history going all the way back to the beginning of the summer. We're attaching a kind of a database access to the analytics. So in addition to looking at what's happening in the last couple of weeks and do some predictions, we're actually making it so that we can look back all the way back into the fall, back into the summer, back to the beginning of the data we have access. So that's one of the projects that the students have been working on. But what tonight is about is how to make the StudySafe app. They've been focusing on the StudySafe app and how to make this really usable thing that students can just intuitively understand. Where are people? Where might people be? If I want to go study somewhere on campus right now, what's a great place for me to go? Or if I need to meet with somebody tomorrow at 9, where might I go? And so with that, Tracy, you want to share? And Tracy and Mia and Brian, feel free. So I should say that Tracy's going to be demoing this. I think she's going to be demoing a development version of it, just because it's like one commit ahead of what we've got in the master. But the app itself is publicly available. You would have seen it in the announcement email. Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, yeah, so I'll do a quick demonstration of the app. And so when you first open it, there's like this warning message about what the app is about. And then you can proceed onto this page that shows a map of the campus with selected buildings. And so the green indicates the default, which is Amos Eaton. And so if you click on the marker, a bar plot will show up that that have like a bar plot for the 24 hours showing the building capacity from using last 7 days data. And so right now it's 5 p.m. and the bar for 5 p.m. is colored. And so you can see that the building capacity is below 25%. And there will be a message here that pops up saying that Amos Eaton is usually not busy at 5 p.m. And we can click on the bar plot to look at, let's say, noon. And so this would change, and it will also prompt a change to the map. We can also change the building selected in the drop down here. So if I want to look at Carnegie, the bar plot would change. And then if I want to look at another day, let's say Friday, it will update the bar plot as well as the map. And we can also change our selection through clicking on the map as well. So if I want to look at the 87 gym, I can click on this and it will update the bar plot and display the building capacity information. And then if I don't want to look at these information anymore, I can close the panel. And so this is a super quick tour about the app.
Well, yeah, let's look at a couple of different things. Just a couple different usability notes, and there's that side menu. You can click on the hamburger and give yourself a little bit more. Whoops, go back. Go back to, yeah, click on the hamburger to make the side menu go away, so you can get. Yeah, there's a user's guide as well, but go back to find a place to study, and there we go. One of the things they're working on is to make this be a full screen when that bar plot is not visible. Tracy, can you click on a really bad situation? Let's find. Oh, yeah, that's actually a good demo. Go click on the armory. You just had the armory. The armory shown there. That's the pool, isn't it?
I'm sorry, I can't find the armory on the
What?
map.
Yeah, it's right there. There you go.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. It's right there. There's a cluster of them. Now go to when it's one of the days one of those good demo days. There we go. Is that one?
It should be. It's Monday.
Yeah. I wanted to find a testing day.
Yeah, Monday and Thursdays are the heaviest days at the
That's right. Yeah. Tracy knew where I was directing her to. You see this surge, the surge leading up to noon on Mondays, and now, okay. So one of the question from Joe was the color coding, and you can see it's the screen view is kind of spread out because she's demoing it on a wide screen, but the key is over on the upper left, and you can see that's means that there's a high density of people. It's between 75 and 100%. The capacity is what we use is the max number of users that we've ever seen. A user is categorized as a person who is logged into the RPI network. That's different than devices, because you could be a single user, but you might be logged in 3 or 4 times depending upon your different devices. We're using users, and so this means that. So, Tracy, why don't you click on one of those reds, just for giggles? There, that's another example. You got the Commons dining hall, and you kind of see that in the middle of the day there's a high capacity over 75%. But if you click on a different time, if you go a little bit later in the evening, it's going to be it's more populated. Now that's really late. Yeah, you can see most of the campus buildings are don't have anybody in them late at night. But so this is an interesting discovery. Monday in the evening is that that's the union. So click on the union there. So we see that there's a lot of usage at different times, and including that spike in the evening. So it might not be a good idea. You might not want to go study at, I guess that's 8 p.m. in the union on a Monday. And so that's pretty much it. And a couple sort of, there's always privacy questions that people ask about. The number one thing to know is that the Wi-Fi data that we're using, and also the Wi-Fi data that the campus is aggregating, is only summary data. It's not individual. There's not a database of individual accesses. So what we see is basically a time log of for each wireless access point, the number of users and the number of devices. That's it. There are circumstances, such as certain residence buildings, where there's almost a 1-to-1 ratio of access points to rooms, just because of how they've laid it out. And for that reason, in this app, we do not do those residence buildings. We only are doing sort of academic type buildings and related on campus and off campus. And that's just an abundance of caution, but also it's, that's just the way it is. So, but that also causes us to exclude, certain dorms and stuff like that. But that's the deal.
So this is Jeff, and I apologize if you saw I had to take a call very quickly, but what determines the building capacity? Is this the reduced capacity or full capacity?
So that is we just had to create a rule of thumb. It's the maximum we ever see. That it's based purely on the Wi-Fi data, because we don't have we don't have those numbers for everything. So we just have a rule of thumb that the capacity is the maximum reading we historically that we see.
Okay.
Everything based on that.
So you've normalized it to whatever you've seen as a max.
That's right. Okay. So if you see a red line with the union, that's based on like you see right there. That's just saying, that is the most we've seen. And
yeah. So like when you were just on Folsom Library, I think, Tracy, which is where my office is. I'm very familiar. The reason I asked that is this semester, for example, Folsom is nowhere near even reduced capacity this semester. It's very dead. Mm-hmm. But as a result, you haven't seen, and when I say really dead, we have, there's a people counter that counts how many people exit the door there. So anybody that's been in Folsom pre-COVID during a fire drill, the library can look empty and 200, 300 people will come out of it, and it can look just normal. Nowadays, if we have 30 people in it, that's a lot, including the staff. So that's why when I saw numbers over 50%, I was like, oh, that can't be. But you explained how, what that means. Okay.
Any other questions out there? Could people?
Yeah. So I was just thinking like a similar scenario, but in the opposite direction almost. So like, for example, you know, when freshmen would go and pick up their laptops in the library, would that break the app for the future because it would spike the number of people, like the maximum number of people that you've ever seen, really high?
Hey,
And
Brian, I
shrink
think you
everything
just
else.
established a baseline is what you did.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. So it would. So the way it would do it, though, keep in mind that we're binning it. So what that would indicate, and I'm Mia or Tracy would have to sanity check me on this, but if you would that would show surging for the particular hours that was happening. So if there was a set of hours, like an afternoon where laptops are being distributed, that would tend to show a lot of activity during that time. And based on the way I was describing it, yeah, that would set that sort of high-end baseline. Mia or Tracy, do you know differently than that? Is that what you would expect to see?
I would think so, since the maximum data is just, sorry, the maximum user is just the highest number we see from like
Yeah.
all the historic data. So yeah.
Yeah. I think Joe had a question regarding, can we look back before COVID? This data was not, they did not start doing this survey until June. And I think
Yeah, actually, yeah, John, we didn't, we started looking at it around June last year, but we didn't actually start recording it in any kind of granularity until August, I think.
we started hoovering it up though all the way through. I mean, I can go all the way back to the beginning. You know,
Oh, you were pulling real time in June?
yeah, we started pulling, and and basically we've got access to the whole thing. It's
Yeah,
we just don't do it out of politeness. We only do sips of data.
Yeah. No, actually, now that you say that, I just lost track of time. You're right. It was June. It was before my job pivoted to testing,
Yeah.
testing, and more testing. So that really picked up in July. So you're right. It was
I
back
think
then.
it's probably like June 26th or something.
So there's another interesting element. By the way, I like the UI. I like a lot of things. I'm impressed with how you did it. I like being able to go back, look at days of the week, look at the way that you can slice and dice some of this data. Within buildings, and I'm going back thinking about the Folsom Library, there is more granularity available than a building. So you could do floors of a building, for example.
So that's interesting. Does Mia or Tracy, do you want to bring up Campus Safe Campus, just for giggles?
Yeah, we
Mia, can you bring
use,
that up?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, Mia can.
Last semester, at the end of the semester, we implemented the floor data to a lot of the visualizations in Safe Campus, the other app. So that's working. Like, we don't have floor data for every building, but like Folsom Library and Sage in particular have a lot of great floor data. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
So Jeff, I think you missed some of the as we got to the fall, some of the update meetings that we were doing on.
Yeah, I was preoccupied. You're right.
So Mia, are you going to bring that up, or is somebody going to bring that up?
I can pull up the app. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to a point where I was weekly, and then I had to drop out completely.
That's all right. You served your role of connecting us with good data. That's.
Yeah. I was just trying to make a rhyme just now. That was all.
So Mia, why don't you kind of explain what we're looking at here?
Okay, so right now, like the sidebar, I've been like making changes, so this is kind of a bit rough, but we can still like go through some of the main visualizations. So like again, like StudySafe, it kind of you get this like first glance of a map, and then you can click on buildings, and this was something recent I added where if you click on a building, you will then see like a bar plot in this input panel, which kind of gives you a preview of what you'll see on the next tab, which is the dashboard. So you can use the hyperlink here to click to the next tab, or you can also like use the hamburger panel at any time. And then if you go to the next tab, this is actually where we have the floor data. So it's actually one of the inputs you can see here. So
yeah, nice.
yeah, so like I can go to, I guess the library or Sage are like good examples, but
And Jeff, they even have a feature where after you generate the plot, you can click on a download link so you can get a PNG that you can put in your presentation to your boss.
or John Erickson can send it to Jeff. Presentation.
That's right.
For the big boss.
That's right, for the big boss. You mean Himmler?
Yeah, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean John.
I knew what you meant. So yeah, so stop right there so Jeff can kind of look at this. This is actually a plot. This particular plot is one I think that Tracy worked on last term. But you see here we're in Sage, and you see those are all the access points in Sage. I guess you isolated the third floor, Mia?
yeah, this is the third floor of Sage.
Yep.
And then this floor data is also in like some of the other apps as well. I think the weekly summary has floor data, so this is just like an overview of the week.
Now, because this is kind of intended for administrative types, it has a bit more information in it than, like you can see the different building types. It includes housing, that sort of thing. So the cool thing is this is using exactly the same data, but it's just using it in a different way, kind of a different focus.
Yep.
And so you notice that the date range thing right there. The idea, and Mia's actually the one who's been working on this next phase. Because of the size of the data, we're sort of performance limited on how much we can load in the app at any one time. So we've been focusing on, since last fall, on just kind of a current window. We take sips of data out of the CIO database. We kind of have a window of 1 week or 2 weeks that we're kind of working with as you go through, rolling through time, and that kind of is optimal. But Mia's been working on the ability for us to just query arbitrary. So let's bring up the historical information for last September, something like that. And she's been working on that. We're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, the predictions tab, we're like working on the SQL stuff to like get it to connect in the app. So it's still a work in progress, but yeah.
Well, you had the SQL stuff. We're working on the MySQL server to replace the in-memory thing. Could someone bring up? Why don't you bring up the? Can you bring up the live version while you're still sharing that? I mean, the prod version
of Safe Campus.
No, of StudySafe. Yeah, I wanted to switch back to StudySafe. I wanted to describe. For those ITWS people and others that are interested, we had an interesting problem when we went live with StudySafe a couple weeks ago now. we made the announcement. I think it was in Morning Mail, all that kind of scary stuff. And sure enough, there's a corollary to Murphy's Law that if you publicize an app going live, something will happen. In our case, when the emails went out to the various departments, people immediately started trying to access it, and it brought our server to its knees. Particularly, so we're using a technology. This is all based on R, and we're using R Shiny to create this, to create the apps. And basically, it's what Shiny brings to R is a JavaScript-based front end. And it turns out that the open source version of the Shiny server doesn't really handle multiple users, the multi-threading very well at all. So essentially, everybody that was trying to access it was trying to access exactly the same app backend. Well, there's a technology called Shiny Proxy that works in conjunction with Docker, such that if you create a Dockerized version of the app, what Shiny Proxy does is for every unique user and app, it launches a new instance. And so we, at the end of the previous week, the beginning of last week, we got that Dockerized, that Shiny Proxy-based thing working, and it was humming along. Also, there was some interesting issues that this is, as you can imagine, this is event handling craziness that in the architecture of this app, more than one would normally do in a Shiny app. And so Brian Hotop, who is actually has been working on our COVID Minder app, helped us out in kind of untangling some of the event craziness. Brian, do you want to talk at all about some of the complexities that you discovered as you dove in?
Sure. So basically, the hard part about this was that you want multiple inputs changing like one piece of application state. So what I'm talking about is you want to be able to select a building using the picker, and you want to be able to select a building by clicking on the leaflet. So, and this is not really super obvious how to do this in Shiny, because the way Shiny wants you to do it is like you have one input mapped to one output. Basically, the way I got around it was set up a reactive value and then have the inputs change the one reactive value, and then use that as the thing that determines how the output looks. And there's actually, yeah, that's the one time you have two inputs with an output. Because for the time selection and day selection, clicking locations on the map doesn't change that. But yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, it's kind of a kind of indirection. It's basically it doesn't, and you can, there aren't a lot of good examples of doing this out there. And I think both Tracy and I had kind of the intuition, Brian, that you had, but you figured it out.
But also, like, Shiny will, if you try and do the wrong thing, it will complain because you can't assign values to the input reactive variables. So
Right.
you have to do this thing where you make a secondary value and then update it.
There's kind of a coding style that I think emerges from this. If you can imagine, if any of you have worked with Shiny before, you know that the canonical examples are like changing an output based on watching an input event. So it's input $foo, input $button, and you have that inside of your code, which is re-rendering your output. But what you want to think of, the coding style that kind of lends itself to multiple multiple stuff is you want to create as Brian said, create a reactive variable that is going to change based on that input thing. Then your whatever your other code is, whether it's here, it's updating your leaflet map or updating your bar plot, you want that to react to an event of your reactive variable changing. And then you can, that gives you a lot of flexibility because you can then monitor the changes to a data frame, for example, or whatever it might be. And there are actually some good examples of that out there of, I made some change to a table. I needed to update. And so there was some lessons learned in how you think about sort of pipelining the propagation of the triggers of the events, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if this is super scalable because when you click a location on the map, it will update the underlying application state, but it will also update the picker so that the picker represents the thing you clicked.
Yeah, right there.
That's like a secondary side effect. So you observe the map click, you update the picker, and then now that the picker has something new updated, it will update the application state. So if you wanted to have like 10 things updating the same piece of application state, and you wanted all the inputs to reflect that new thing, then you would have to have like 9 side effects on every input updating the other inputs. So it would be pretty strange, but it's possible.
So Mia, you demoed it right as Brian was doing it. Click on a couple other buildings and everybody watch the drop down, the state of the drop down on that choose a building. See the Science Center, and she clicks on another building. That actually is kind of non-trivial. That's one of those things that leaves people scratching their heads. How do you do this in Shiny? And it's probably 35 Stack Overflow requests. All right, cool. Thanks. Does anybody have any questions? Any other questions? They could be specific to this cool app. They could be our questions in general.
This is really cool. Nice job, nice work. I was thinking about this, like in one other application would be, imagine we have to clean the places. I mean, like, using in a different settings, because of the COVID-19, they had to keep cleaning the places. Like, can we use this as a guidance to, if more people are there, like, number of times being cleaned on those places, like, the facility management staff can think about visiting on those areas more. I mean, like, if one might not be applicable in the settings, what's the protocols and rules and guidelines by, the cleaning protocols, but just a thought, I thought of saying that.
Well, that's an interesting, so really generally, Thalanka, you're thinking about sort of facility management. How can you use the density information for that? And that's kind of where we were coming at, and kind of what the administration was first asking for when Safe Campus was conceived. So Safe Campus is more of a management kind of thing. You saw that it's showing floor information and showing kind of, unfortunately, it's difficult to map routers to rooms because it's not one-to-one, and there's not a there's some information on where routers are in buildings. But not 100% information on it. But you can imagine, if you think back to that third floor Sage, you could see on certain days when there was lots of activity, and other times when there wasn't any activity. And you could imagine using that for that sort of guidance, and that sort of intelligence is
that's what I meant.
That's what Safe Campus was intended for.
Overall, very nice. Good job. Kudos.
Jeff, do you have any other thoughts on sort of those sort of management kinds of capabilities or wants?
Well, when you just brought that up, John, I was trying to think along those lines a little. Not off the top of my head. And part of the problem, John, is I've been away from this aspect for almost a year now. Well,
It is.
9 months.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me how I can optimize how we're going to do testing for the Emma Willard School or something, I can help you now.
I tried to put you on the spot. Yes.
Oh, no, it's okay. But I can see, so that the cleaning paradigm there, I was just trying to think of what other uses really come down in terms of looking at people density.
So, one of the cool things about sometimes the simplest solution, is very effective. At the beginning, at the rise of COVID, people were very concerned about, do we need proximity detectors? Are we going to have to wear little Bluetooth Star Trek badges and stuff to figure out where people are and our buildings being overpopulated, that sort of thing. And other people said, well, we could somehow, devices could talk to each other and it could do something like that. And this was really kind of I think it was just a great, simple idea from people, under Kolb, people like Graham and stuff Graham Doig, who just, if we just keep a time log, a time-stamped log of how the access points are hit, and we've got access points everywhere, we can do something with that data.
Yeah, and actually the germ of the idea, John, came from a discussion that John Kolb had with IBM folks, and it was IBM global folks, and they were talking about, and I'm trying to remember which facility. It was in Far East Asia Pacific API region of IBM. It was not North America. It wasn't Europe. And there was a person on this call with John and said, well, we're looking, it was a throwaway comment. We're using the WAP data, and they were using it a little differently than we are, but they were using it as more of a strict control. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason is it was in a workplace setting. So when they could tell the difference between static WAP usage and dynamic WAP. So in other words, people on the move versus somebody just sitting in an office. And they were using the data that way to determine where they were going to run into a density problem. So that's where we took the idea from, if you will. But I think it's a good example how of a trickling of the thread of an idea, not just electronically, but that was actually a person-to-person interaction. But did you, from around the globe, it was a throwaway comment. And John Kolb thought, hey, we have that stuff, and talked with Graham the next day and talked with Hendler the next day, and off we went, right?
And all hell broke loose.
And all hell broke. Then we gave it to Erickson and a bunch of you brilliant students, and then off we go.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's a neat way. I think a neat way to wrap things up. Does anybody else have any other questions? Because we could wrap this up, because I've got a wonderful stew waiting downstairs. It's got some Murphy Stout in it. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, you could ask the list, or you can probably find me via email. You can easily find me via, or ask anybody, they'll know how to get hold of me. And we'd be happy to discuss more about this. There's also information on the IDEA. I meant to talk about the open source aspect of this. All of this stuff is open source. These apps are on the RPI GitHub. They're actually internal on the RPI GitHub, but and on the IDEA website, idea.rpi.edu, under projects, there's a whole listing of data insight. There's what we call a gallery of data insight projects. And under that, you can find information about StudySafe. You can find information about Safe Campus and other projects we worked on, such as COVID Minder, COVID Twitter, which will probably be starting up again in the summer, and other projects we've done in the past. So if you're interested in this or any others, or how we do things, just give us a shout, okay? All right, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to stop my recording now. All right.